Welcome to Let's Talk Passion and Purpose, the podcast where we explore the journeys of creators, leaders, and visionaries who've turned their passions into purpose. Join your host, Nicole Thomas, as we dive into inspiring stories, uncover strategies for success, and help you take the next step toward a life filled with meaning. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Passion and Purpose with Nicole Thomas. I am thrilled because this evening we are going to have a chat with none other than the Laura Canty-Samuel. Laura Canty-Samuel is a four-time Emmy-nominated TV writer and award-winning stand-up comedian. She has written for Sesame Studios, HBO Max, and ABC Disney, to name a few. She is the co-creator and artistic producer of the Political Roundtable, Politically Charged, a founding member of the Black sketch comedy movement, Ninjas Assemble, and is an original member of the amazing sketch comedy group, Wow, the Foundation. As co-artistic director of America's premier comedy theater, the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in New York City, she was recently named a New York City Power Player in Arts and Culture. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you, Nicole Thomas.
I'm so happy to have you here. Wow, this is amazing. You've built an impressive career across multiple fields, comedy, television writing, and theater. How did you discover your passion for comedy and writing, and what made you realize it was your purpose?
Oh, that's a great question to start off with. I will say I was drawn to comedy since I was a very small child. I had the privilege of being the granddaughter of a very funny woman, and through her stories and her ability to take stories that may have been a little sad or tragic and find the humor in them, it just gave me this outlook on life where I began to see all of the funny things that happened around me, even though I grew up in circumstances that were inner city Philadelphia, a little rough on the edges. And she grew up in the deep South where she dealt with all types of like racism and oppression, but was still able to pull all of these amazingly funny stories out of that. So I loved that she could do that. And that just became ingrained in me. So throughout my life, leaning into comedy has been a way for me to deal with serious issues, but also just finding the joy in everyday things with my family and my friends and being able to bring a smile to someone's face. Something that simple is so meaningful to me. And I wanted to use those skills in a professional way. They say if you do what you love, you don't work a day or something like that. I don't know. It's not true because it's still work. When you have to do it every day, it's work. But it is something that I enjoy, and I'm happy that I get to do it because even when I'm not getting a paycheck for it, it is a skill that I can use every day, all the time. I can make someone laugh just standing on a subway platform if, the situation arises. And that's, I think it's a great gift, and I'm just happy that I have it.
Oh, what a blessing. So you learned early on from family to find joy and to lean in and see the humor in everyday life. And that's beautiful because there's so many things, as you mentioned, like there's trauma, there's so many, there's just life. But to be able to just glean a bit of joy and make other people happy is a beautiful thing. It's beautiful. So, as a four-time Emmy-nominated writer and co-artistic director of the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, what challenges have you faced along your journey? And then also, this is two-pronged. How did you overcome any doubts or setbacks?
Oh, wow. Okay. What I will say is that each of the positions that I've been fortunate enough to obtain or any accolades has just come from constantly honing my craft and being in the right place at the right time. We always talk about this kind of thing, it's part luck. You have to be ready. And of course, I can't not know what I'm doing and then, expect to get anything out of that. But being prepared, part of it is being in the right place at the right time and networking. with people and being open in terms of, for example, TV writing. I started off as a stage actress, and then I began running some of my own things. And I was working with a fabulous children's theater company called the Paper Bag Players. They're phenomenal. If you have little ones out there, you should really take your kids to see them. They use cardboard and paper and found objects to make these amazing sets and costumes. And they're just a joy to see. But I worked with them as a writer and creator. And I met a woman who had a child who I thought was the right age. We were going to the same bookstore over in Bed-Stuy. We would see each other periodically. And I said to her, hey, you should bring your son to one of our shows. He's the right age. He'll enjoy it. At the time, I did not know that she was working, in creative development at Nickelodeon. I didn't know that she was someone who would actually like set me on a different path. I don't even know how much she knows that. But she came, she loved it, and she wanted to do some work with us. And then she wanted to do some work with me. And then over time, she went to Sesame, and she reached out to me when she was at Sesame, and I began working with them. And I got to create a piece called Explaining Race. It's one of the first pieces that Sesame did that directly took on the idea of race. We look at Sesame as this wonderful, like diverse, like neighborhood, like 123 Sesame Street, and that, all of the wonderful people of all types and kinds, colors, sizes. But it was the first time they actually took on the idea of race with Explaining Race. And I was fortunate enough to be tapped to write that. And that's when I got my first Emmy nomination. Should have won, didn't. But I think Michelle Obama's company had something to say about that because I think they won. Anyway. I like her, but
yes. Laura.
But I say all of that to say, being prepared and working hard, doing what you love, and being open to people. Now, if I had not extended myself, to this person, like we weren't friends, I just saw, that she seemed to be a great mom, with a kid who was the right age. I was like, you should take him. And I've said that to many people. And in that case, that was just something that really helped to solidify a new path in my life, toward TV. And with the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, I started there as a student. And I've been talking to other Black creators recently and talking about the idea of being in sketch comedy and improv comedy. It honestly is a very, I'm going to call it a white space. It just is. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They're just the grand majority of those who work in those fields. So the few of us who do walk those paths, there's this extra determination that we need because many times, and no fault of their own, but many times teachers or directors are not necessarily cued into our experiences. Like when you're doing comedy, you always talk about working at the top of your intelligence. Okay. So in drawing from the top of my intelligence, my experience is going to be much different than some in my cohort who haven't had any experiences similar to mine. And I am more likely to have had some of their experiences because they come from the major population, I'll say. Okay, if that makes sense. So, but just sticking in there and saying, hey, this is what I want to do, and working hard and learning and putting yourself out there, even when you feel uncomfortable, or even when someone doesn't get your comedy and you're like, okay, you don't get it. I'm not going to let that deter me. I just understand that you just don't have that same sensibility. So you don't know why that's funny. Someone else may know why that's funny. And, again, going back to just working that muscle, working that discipline, and also being willing to fail. There's an entertainment. You fail all the time, and not because you're bad. It's just that's the breaks. Sometimes someone else is just right for a part. Someone else's writing was more specific to what was needed. And you just have to roll with the lumps. You have to be ready to take rejection all of the time. So in terms of overcoming, that's a part of it, I would say. One important thing is learning to take rejection and move forward. And how did I do that? I just want to do this thing. And if I want to do this thing, I have to be able to swallow my pride. And there were tears at points in my life. There were tears, but you have to learn to get beyond that. You have to learn what we call is kill your darlings. And what that means is, as a writer, the comedy writer, I'll write jokes. I think they're amazing parts of my script. And the person who I'm writing for will come back and say, no, or that's not funny, or can you get rid of that? And you think to yourself, this is amazing. This is hilarious. But you have to understand that writing is rewriting. So if I have to get rid of something, that's fine. And even now, and now that I've been doing this for a while, I can go back and say, okay, this is funny, but I can save this for a different time. I can keep this joke for a different script, for a different idea. One joke is not going to make or break me. There are times you may hear other comedians talk about how their jokes were stolen. I've had people like steal a couple of ideas, but one idea does not make or break you, because you're supposed to be a fount of ideas. That's, as a creator, you have to constantly have ideas. So if one doesn't work out, if someone takes it, but more than likely, it's just someone happens to have the same idea. It's just what it is. But it's how you have come to that idea. And sometimes you just have it's a coincidence. Mm-hmm. And then if they're more famous than you, you have to let go of your idea.
I'm letting go.
Yes, not letting go. You stop me at any time, because I will keep going, Nicole. I can chat.
I'm listening intently, because you have shared so much, and I'm taking notes. I'm copious notes. And what I've heard a lot, but definitely keep going. Failing is a part of the process, which I love, right? Because we do fall down and we have to get back up. What really intrigues me is there's so many things, but positioning yourself to be prepared, to be in the right place, right? That's important. But you were able to speak up and share. What advice do you have for people who aren't sure of their direction and they don't want to share? They're hesitant to share, because you mentioned by sharing that changed the trajectory of your career.
Yes, sharing is important. One thing I tell students and people coming up in comedy is to share your resources. Share your news. If you find out that SNL is, casting, for example, right? And if it's an open casting call, generally it's not open. You have to go through your manager or whatever. You'll get, it'll come to you because they specifically want you to submit. But there have been times when it is more open, and when those opportunities come, if you hear about it, tell other people who you know in the community. And I say that because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to tell, because then if I do, that's going to lessen my chance. No, it's not. Because if you're who they want, you are who they want. And if someone else gets it, and it's because you gave the recommendation, there's a great chance that person will reach back and pull you forward. Okay. So don't be afraid of losing what you don't have. And that's something I had to learn, but I learned it very fast, like very early on. And I think I learned it because in high school, I'm going way back, but this is when the Cosby Show, and thank goodness, I guess I didn't get cast, but this is when the Cosby Show was casting. And I found out after the casting call that friends of mine were aware of it and had gone, and they didn't tell me. And I think they didn't tell me because they thought I was the better talent. And it's not that I'm tooting my own horn. It's just what it was at the time. And so I think they thought, oh, well, we're going to better our chances if we don't tell her and say, let's go. Now, no one got it, because they weren't who they were looking for. And I don't think I would have gotten it either, because looking at that cast, I'm not what they were looking for. But what I will say is, if I had been cast, right, that would have been an opportunity for me to say, hey, if they needed someone on the show, they wanted extras or whatever you begin to learn as you're in certain circles, and reaching out and saying, hey, I know a person who would be awesome. but that was never an opportunity for any of us. And so I learned that by being on the other side of it. And then even then, knowing, as you go along and just remembering that, and still there's that fear of what, of like giving away what you think is your pot of gold. But no, half of something is better than nothing is the way I look at things. And it's better to have those connections with various people who may one day be your support. And also these same people will be the people who may actually be the ones to give you jobs, So I think once it's important to create a community. And in that community, it's important to share your resources. We're all in this together. And I think that it's a misstep when people don't realize that. And your life is so much richer and you have so much more opportunity when you share opportunities. It's just what I believe.
I believe that as well. And that's powerful. A lot of people feel very much like you, as you mentioned, they hoard information, they didn't want to share, but I think that's coming from also like a position of scarcity, a mindset of
Yes.
scarcity, as opposed to abundance for everyone, and there's room for everyone to
Yes.
succeed. So it's wonderful. I'm so glad that you shared that information. And then also about failure and being able to get back up. There are a lot of people who are afraid to fail in public.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people, as you mentioned, to realize that that's a part of the process. But you still have to do the work and just keep getting back up.
Yes. And people don't remember. Okay. Maybe even if they do remember your failures, so what? Go succeed somewhere else,
Failure, that's true. But you will succeed,
yeah.
and that's the most important part, right?
Yes,
That you
at
just get back
something.
up and you're trying at something. It's
At
something.
something. Yes.
It's something.
At something.
Try. So your work spans from writing for children's shows like Sesame Street to creating political roundtables like Politically Charged. Where do you find inspiration for such a diverse range of projects, and how do you balance these different types of writing?
Oh, I get inspiration just from the things that I feel passionate about. When you write comedy, one thing they tell you to generate ideas is you make a love and hate list, right? And then you write down all the things you absolutely love, and then you write all the things down that you absolutely hate. And then you use those lists to create jokes and content. Like I hate alternate side parking. I hate it. I think it's a money grab. I think that this city, and I think we all could do a better job of clearing the streets and cleaning them without having to do alternate side like every other day. I don't like it. And I finally had an opportunity to talk about it in a show. It's been on my list, and someone wrote a piece, and they remembered me talking about how much I hated it, and they asked me, said, "Well, I'm doing this. Can you, talk about that in my piece?" And so when you're passionate about certain things, and you have your list, it's very easy to develop content. So I really am, I guess, motivated by my passions, by the things I love and the things that I hate. So in regard to writing for children, I love being someone who is standing in the gap for our next generation. I love the idea of when I was a child, I wanted to be a child psychologist because I wanted to make the lives of children better. So in my own way, though I did not do that, I still have had the opportunity to create better ways of living and better ways of understanding for children and their caregivers, which is so important. And because that's important to me, I can easily fit into that role and pay attention to that and really give my all to that. On the other side of it, this year, I'm very concerned about our political system. I'm concerned about where we fit in as Black women. And I thought that it was important to have a space for Black women to discuss politics, what our hopes and dreams are, just how we feel, how we can feel better, be better, what we need to do in order to move forward. And again, not hoarding that idea, I reached out to another fabulous comedian who runs the Black Women in Comedy Laugh Fest, Joanna Briley. Also, her Rolodex is thick. So, but she's amazing. And people love her. And that's why her Rolodex is thick, because she has this festival and people like believe in her and her brand. And so when I talked to her about this idea, she was immediately on board. And then she reached out to Michelle, the indie mom, and together we've created this thing that we want to take from place to place. But it has to do with our passions and believing in Black women and how we can position ourselves in our communities and in politics and laugh about it, because they're really tough issues that we're dealing with right now, but we also need to be able to find ways to laugh about it and inspire through from a place of joy and support as opposed to tears.
Yeah, as opposed to tears. That's so true. And so it's so nice to hear how you've married your passion and purpose with helping humanity, right? Your core values, everything is tied together. And I think that's wonderful. I just want to take a step back because I'm really intrigued by this love and hate list. It's my first time hearing about this love and hate. Just have to ask you,
Yes.
Do you suffer from writer's block? Is that a real thing for comedians? I mean, with the love and hate list, do you always have content, or is there?
Oh, you definitely have writer's block, but the only way to unblock it is to write. So so you may say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to write about. But then that's where your list comes in, like, oh, I can write about this thing. And oh, if I start writing this, it's not going to be good. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be good. You just have to write through it to get to the good. And because the thing is, even when you are feeling good, even when you don't feel blocked, you can still look back and say, oh, that was crap, So
Right.
so
That's true.
even if you're blocked and what you're writing, you don't feel necessarily inspired by, you have to write through it. And also as a writer, sometimes writing is reading. Sometimes writing is watching other shows, to get some inspiration. Like, oh, I need to focus in on this pilot I'm working on. Gosh, let me look at some things that are similar. Let me see what they did. That's a part of the process. Oh, I need to write some like jokes for somebody. Let me read some jokes. Let me read The Onion. Let me look at like someone else's scripts, because that also helps as well to jumpstart you and for you to think, oh, wow. Because when you're watching other people's material and when you're reading other people's material as well, ideas will pop into your head that may have nothing to do with what you're watching, but something like a little bell will go off. You'll say, oh, wow. Like it could be something you're just watching, like a show, and it could be you see somebody walk through in a red tracksuit, has nothing to do with the content, but that red tracksuit reminds you of that time you were in Philadelphia at the cheesesteak store and this thing happened, So just being engaged in that way and watching out for things and tapping into memories helps you through, I think, writer's block. But again, it's like write your way through it, but also feel open to listening to someone else's like podcast or watching like someone else's TED Talk and, and getting your juices flowing and getting you back onto the page.
Thank you, because I was curious. Very curious. And I do want to take a step back because you mentioned a lot regarding the political roundtable, like politically charged. And I just want to say I commend you for working so hard on creating a space, because we're in a difficult time and all of us are navigating uncertain waters. So to be able to use comedy to bring to unite us and build community is important. So I do have another question for you. I'm very, very curious. So as a founding member of the Black sketch comedy movement, Ninja is a symbol, and an original member of the foundation, how important has community been in your growth as an artist? Because you did mention community before, but I would love to hear you expand on that. And what impact do you think that these groups have on the comedy world in general?
Oh, well, with the foundation, We have a show on Saturday, as a matter of fact, 7 p.m. at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, 242 East 14th Street. I've been working with them for a number of years. It's been, oh my gosh, almost a decade, someone mentioned. I think they're wrong. I think they're wrong. I think it's more like not. I think it's more like maybe 8 years. I don't know, but that can't be right. But it's a diverse group of individuals who we were paired with at UCB. UCB has something called house teams, and we were put together on Maud Night. Maud Night currently happens on Monday nights, as it did then, and you have some of the best comedy writers and performers come together in teams and create shows each month. So we were put together, and we were very fortunate in that our team was so diverse. We got to talk about issues that other teams hadn't talked about as much. We got to talk about race and culture quite a bit, which became a staple of our group. Now, we did other like funny little things too, sketches about like the Rube Goldberg machine and things like that. But we also talked quite a bit about, we were able to talk about like the Me Too movement, and many people did, but because I think we were able to do it so deftly, because we had already been talking about a variety of issues, like again, racially, culturally, in terms of like women and rights. So being with them in terms of growing community, they've been great because it was a safe space to discuss issues among a diverse group of people. So it wasn't like we were in an echo chamber, which is not always bad, to be in an echo chamber. But because we were so different, because we were, Black and Asian and, Latina and, Irish, just because we were all these things, we were able to really delve into issues with fresh eyes. Because I could, talk about something, but then someone who was from a different experience than I have had. I mentioned earlier how sometimes that can be challenging when you're dealing with people who have a totally different background. But in this case, this group, each person was willing to lean in to that difference. Even though that may not have been their experience, they were willing to lean in and also help you find funny ways to look at things. Because even if I looked at something one way, someone else who grew up totally different than me can say, oh, well, this is why it's funny to me. And like, oh, okay. And then that just made the tapestry even richer when it came to creating, our sketches. With Ninjas Assemble, we have a show coming up on December 7th at UCB. We decided, me and my co-creators decided, actually two members from the foundation who happen to be Black, and we got together because we've been wanting to create something larger together, and then had to do it out of necessity because all the other team members were gone 1 month. And it was just the three Black people. So we said, okay. So we did. We did an all Black show. I wasn't even there for that show, but I did write for it. But there's we need safe spaces, but we also need to be able to create and present comedy to audiences that, well, first of all, want to see their experiences on stage, but also audiences that are curious, who are culturally curious about what kind of comedy and what kind of issues people who are other than them or different than them want to discuss or bring to the stage. So I think with Ninjas Assemble, we're going to be filling an important gap in the sketch comedy and improv community, especially coming back from the pandemic. Even though the pandemic, the height of the pandemic happened, a couple of years ago, a few years ago, I still think that the comedy world and many areas of our society are reeling from that still. Things have not come back totally, at least they're not the way they used to be. So everyone is finding new ways to engage. So for us, for Ninjas Assemble and the Black comedy community, sketch and improv primarily, just giving them a space to know that we are still here, that our voices can still be strong, and that working together we'll be able to accomplish a lot and give each other support and resources that we might not have individually. And that's one thing I learned with sketch is just sketch and improv people are very nice people by and large. I come from a stand-up background, as you may know, and stand-ups are not nice. It's not that they're not nice people, but they're also very cynical. But that's where the comedy comes from. Their tongues can be very sharp, but that's okay. You can laugh about it. One story I have is where I ran into a group of stand-ups that I knew, and like I had on this like all white outfit, and I thought I looked fabulous, and they just began to, call me all kind of everything, Dalai Lamas and so on, and so. But I could laugh and I could take it because I knew where they were coming from. But my sketch people would say, "Oh, wow, you look so nice," Oh, and you know what? You look like an angel. It's like if an angel was like walking in New York City. Oh, that would be funny. And they start thinking about things like that. So they're still finding funny things to say, but much nicer. Yes.
Yes, I can see the difference. I can see the difference. So, for those listening who are passionate about comedy or writing, but unsure where to start, what advice would you give them?
I would say, okay, there are a couple of ways to go about it. If for stand-up comedy, go to an open mic. Write down some jokes. You may not know how to write a joke, but go and listen, get up on the stage and bomb. Just go up and fail. Get it out of the way because you're going to fail. Even the best comics bomb. One of my, no one wants to see anyone bomb, but seeing a famous comic bomb makes you know that, okay, it happens to everyone. And also, though, you learn something because then you see how they recover or how they handle it, how they deal with it. So it's all important and all good. So go and bomb. But if you're not ready to just step on a stage and bomb, take a class. That's what I did. How I ended up in stand-up comedy was through Groupon. Hear me out. So
Through Groupon?
Through Groupon.
Tell us more.
Yes. I had always wanted to do stand-up, but I didn't know where to go and how to start. Like, I want to do that, but I don't know what you just don't go to a club and they let you say, and I don't even know, what do you do? And then I saw a Groupon. It was for $25 to take a stand-up comedy. So one-day class. I said, oh, I'm $25. If I lose the $25, it's fine. It's only $25. So I went, and my teacher's name was Dave LaBarca, and it was at Gotham, a writers group, which teaches a variety of classes. I went, and the first half of the class, oh, I was terrible. I was the worst. I was the worst person in the class.
You kept going. So tell us more about that. Tell us more about
it. It was what happened was I was telling jokes, but they were more from a place of anger, not humor. So what happened during that class, though, is that we had to go to lunch. But before the lunch break, our instructor said, what I want you to do when you come back is write jokes for your favorite comedian. Write in their voice, because if you can write in someone else's voice, then you can write for yourself. Write for them, and then what you do is just alter the jokes so that they sound like they're right for you, which was amazing to me. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I knew I could do that. At the time, my favorite comedian was Chris Rock. And I said, I can do that. And so what I did not go out to lunch. I stayed in the classroom and I wrote. And I wrote my bit for Chris Rock. And then we went around the class. It was great. They got to me and I crushed. It was, I killed. And the teacher, he said to me, and it was in front of the whole class, he said, "You're the best person I've ever seen do this." He said, "Do not stop comedy. That do this." And it was amazing. And so, and maybe that was just a way for him to get me to sign up for the next 6 weeks of class. Maybe, but it worked. I did it.
Yeah, you did it,
And
and look where you are now.
yes, and it was great. But again, it's all about learning of different techniques. If I had given up, I would have left the first half of the class because I was like, oh, this is not good. This is not something I should ever be doing. But because I stuck around and I stuck to it, and then I said, I can do it. I can try. I can do it this way. So much of anything that we do in life is finding our own way. Like my path is going to be different from someone else's path. And and that's okay. And the thing is, I may never get to a place that someone else got to, and someone may never get to the place that I got to, but learning where you fit in, what makes you happy, where you feel successful, and just working at that is so important, and not trying to have someone else's idea of success, walking someone else's path. Um, Someone else can guide you, and it's going to be beneficial to listen and to learn. But at some point, you do have to say, okay, this is how they did it, but this is how I need to do it now. And and that's great, but just knowing that you have options, that
Mm.
the door doesn't have to close. So in regard to stand up, take a class, just give it a try. And maybe you're not a stand-up comedian. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe all you want to do is write, then write, then write.
Mhm.
And again, I believe in classes. That's how, again, going to UCB and taking classes there, taking classes at the Pit is another comedy theater. I took a class at the Magnet. UCB just really resonated with me. The we teach something called game. That's a story for another day. But it is something that really does define what UCB is. That really works in
Mhm.
helping to create solid comedy. In any
Mhm.
event, but take a class and join in. If you take a class, don't leave it at that. Then join a writer's group if you're a writer. Join a comedy group, go to open mics, go and read your stuff in front of people. Like I've joined writers groups where I would go and we would all read our things, and everyone else may have been reading drama and I'm reading comedy, but I was still there, and I was still getting feedback. And it was great though, because I was getting feedback from people who were like in another mindset, but who could laugh and see, oh, this is why this is funny,
Mhm.
So just putting yourself out there is important,
Mhm.
and not in overcoming fear, because fear is limiting. And again, if you don't do anything, you've done nothing. It's better to do something and fail and then say, okay, I had that experience. Let me try again, or let me do this a different way, because at least then you're doing something. I said it earlier. Half of something is better than a whole lot of nothing.
Powerful. A whole lot of nothing, half of
Yes.
something. So
Yes.
really stepping out of your comfort zone. It takes a lot. It's not easy.
Mm.
But when you put in the work, as you were saying, and you keep showing up, that's when you see the difference. And then you have community to help support you. So getting
Yes.
feedback from diverse mindsets, and so it's so important to have community. What's one key lesson that you've learned in your career that you wish that you knew earlier when you were starting out? What is one thing?
Not to be afraid.
Fear is limiting. Don't be
Yes.
afraid. Jump
Yes.
off the cliff. Take class. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yes. Yes. And the thing is, I'm going to go back to like back to high school and college. Not being afraid to speak to teachers or professors, not being afraid to have conversations with people who know things that you need to know. And life can be intimidating, and people who sit in certain positions, they can be intimidating. And getting beyond that and knowing that they're just people too, and either they'll say yes or no. And even now, and I think we all, even the most fearless people, sometimes I think, because we're normal, because we are people, you think to yourself, oh, should I do this thing? So you have to give yourself that extra push. But being willing to reach out, stepping out of your comfort zone, as you say, and and reach out to people who may know more than you, especially people who are there to help you. But also I really have to say this, is that sometimes many times we don't know what we don't know. And so when you're a young writer or an early writer, an early artist, and you created this thing you think is wonderful, and then you want something, you want to appreciate it, and you want to reach out to someone and ask for their help and their insight, and really all you want is their cosign. Don't do that to people.
Don't tell us why. Why not?
Because these, people who you're reaching out to, they have lives and they are all working hard themselves. And if they're putting aside time for you, and sometimes they won't because they just don't have the time. And it's nothing against you. It's just that they have 1,000 other people asking them for things too. And that's something you have to know. That's something you have to remember. Because I know early on, I thought to myself, oh, they just don't like me. And maybe they didn't, or maybe they read what I wrote and they were like, oh, I don't have time to even work this out with her. But I didn't, but learning not to take it personally and say, okay, they have their own lives. This is something they couldn't do. Let me keep moving forward. But also, if someone does take the time to talk to you or to look at what you've done or to give you notes, take those notes. Even if you don't agree, take those notes, digest it, and then look back and say, okay, what is it that they saw that I don't see? Don't just assume that they just don't know what they're talking about or they don't like me. No, listen. But also, if you know that you are very new and very green, don't expect to suddenly gain a lot of attention from someone. And again, don't take it personally. It's just that you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that your formatting is terrible. That is something a lot of newer writers don't know. They don't know that the formatting on the page is terrible. And at a certain point, it's hard to read. Or it's hard to understand. And again, it's not to cast aspersions because we've all been there. Looking back at some of mine, I'm like, oh boy, and I gave this to people. It's amazing that I was able to move beyond that. But if someone tells you to fix it, fix it. That's just what it is. So I just think it's important to put your best foot forward at all times and to know that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So try to find out as much as you can. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume that you've done it right when you're starting out. Thankfully, the internet is here now and you can find all the resources that you need and really pay attention to those resources. Don't assume that they don't matter because they do.
Yeah. Don't assume that it doesn't matter, that they don't matter, but they do. And I think sometimes we take things for granted.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't put in the extra effort and we put that weight or burden on someone else to help us. So what's next for Laura Canty-Samuel?
Nicole Thomas, I wish I knew. Still writing, creating a comedy. I talk to, always having ideas, always into ideation mode. I sent a text to a friend and co-collaborator, with a show idea, again, centered around politics and the fact that I think we found a better name, but I was pitching the name, what about, it's white man's winter, or it's like white man's season, or, because looking at, what's going to happen with the next administration, it is very, very light-skinned. So I think that we should be, this is a time for POC, members of the community, to discuss what this looks like for us. How we're going to exist in this world, how we get beyond it, how we move through it, how we make change, how we walk through doors, kick open doors, or whatever it is. So so what's next? That is an idea that I just had today that we're looking to start developing. So there's that. But beyond that, I work right now. I'm writing for Once Upon a Beat, which is an award-winning children's podcast. It's fun and amazing. So hopefully we'll get picked up. We were just picked up for the second half of the season. Hopefully we'll be picked up for another like season. So that's great. Just hoping to delve more into writing for TV. The thing is that your listeners should know is that I came to this later in life. This is like my second, third act. So it's interesting to be in this position because you have all of these, bright, fresh-faced young people like coming out of college and, with their scripts in hand, and you're competing against that. And there's something to be said for like youth and virility. But there's also something to be said for having lived a life and having stories under your belt that people just starting out don't have. And so I point this out because if you are someone who is coming to this as a second career or as a third career or hobby or whatever it is, do not feel that there is not a place for you, because there is a place for you. And many times that happens in stand-up because a lot of the people are young in stand-up and all they really want to talk about is self-gratification, but you have more to talk about. You have a richer you've lived a richer life just because it's been longer. And not to say young people haven't lived rich lives. It's just that you have more under your belt. So don't ever feel that you don't fit, that you can't do it. I mean, like Rodney Dangerfield, he didn't, I don't think he started until he's like 55 or older or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, or may have been 60, I'm not sure. I just know that he wasn't 21, and he had lived a life. So for me, what's next? I am just still like running the race of a young person, I think, just trying to say, hey, I belong here. I know we're going to be finishing soon, but I want to tell this one story. I was in an improv class some years ago. And again, being the oldest person in the class, I don't think anyone knew because I presented young, good living. So I was in an elevator with a couple of the other students, and one student was talking about someone who was a lot younger than I was, but this person didn't know that. They're like, oh, I don't know why anyone, who's 30 years old would start improv. That's just crazy. I know, they're so old. Like, why would they do that? Ha 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 ha. Meanwhile, like, I have, kids in high school, I'm a homeowner, It's like they had no idea that I was, older than this other person. And I guess that could have made me say, I'm not going back to class tomorrow because this is ridiculous. But I was like, you know what? Nope. I'm going to go. And I did. And actually, me and that student, we became like friends. I don't know if they ever realized how old I was, but but that is to say that there is and the great thing about comedy is that there's always a place for you because you can always tell a joke. Like if I was like, then maybe I'm not going to go out back and become a surgeon. Maybe my hands won't be steady enough in 10 years, who knows? Maybe I'm not interested in that. But the point is with comedy, you can always tell a joke. You can always make someone laugh, whether it's for free or whether you're getting paid. And if it's for free, you still get the joy of their laughter as payment. You can't live on that, but it is something that is enriching just to your mind, your body, your spirit. And I'll always be able to do it as long as my mind allows. So that's
beautiful.
Why, yeah.
Beautiful. To have a skill that helps others and that you can literally use your entire life. So where can we find you?
Oh,
What
wow.
platforms?
Oh gosh. Okay, well, you can find me on on Instagram at L Michelle Comedy.
L Michelle Comedy.
Yes. Like I've only posted a couple of things on TikTok. I'm going to become, I guess, more active, and I keep saying that. But on there, I am Laura Michelle. On Facebook, I'm Laura Michelle. Again, I've become more of a lurker. Like on Facebook, someone like kind of stalked me, so then I kind of backed out. I was like, I can't do this. And I was getting going on my platform. I was like posting every day, and I was like, no. See, it didn't take. See, some people they're fine. It did not take much for me. For me to know my boundaries, said nope,
One stalker and you said,
nope,
that's
nope.
it. Laura, I tell you, that is too funny. But we can find you Instagram, L Michelle,
Yes, L Michelle Comedy.
L Michelle Comedy, TikTok, Laura Michelle,
Yes,
Facebook, Laura Michelle.
yes, yes,
Okay. When you're
yes.
visiting or lurking,
Yes. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Laura Canty-Samuel. So if you have a job for me, please reach out. Yes.
exactly. I love it. Networking at its best. Laura, I
Yes.
just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I've learned, I tell you, so much information, and it's so powerful in the end. But you know what you said, just, even if you start later in life, just keep going because it's never too late.
Yeah.
It's really never too late to pursue your passion. So thank you
Yes.
again.
Well, thank you for having me, Nicole.
And I hope to have you back again. Thank you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Let's Talk Passion and Purpose. I hope you're leaving inspired and ready to elevate your journey. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share if you enjoyed today's episode. Stay connected, follow your passion, live purposefully, and we'll see you next time.